Oh, good morning. Welcome in. The Out of Bounds Show, brought to you by Blue Cross Blue Shield of Mississippi. It's good to be blue, the official healthcare provider of the Out of Bounds Show. Blue Cross Blue Shield of Mississippi. You're listening to ESPN 105.9 The Zone. The Out of Bounds Show, we're streaming live on the Out of Bounds radio app, thezone1059.com, and you can watch the show right now on YouTube. Search Out of Bounds Sports. Our guests join us on the Shinerbach guest line. We welcome in David Helman, Cowboys Insider. He is the guy, DallasCowboys.com. And big news coming out of Dallas yesterday as Dak and the Cowboys agree to a long-term deal. And David, good morning. How much sleep are you working on? And we lost him. All right, so we'll work on getting him back. How about that? Live in the Bank Plus studio, David Helman joins us on the Shinerbach guest line, Cowboys Insider. David, how much sleep are you working off of?
Not very much, to answer your question. I think I was up late working on stuff because of the deal, and then it's not like I got paid, so I don't know why I had a hard time. I don't know why I had a hard time sleeping, but I shot awake at probably like 5 o'clock, so I've just kind of been hanging out. So yeah, not a lot, but adrenaline helps you in situations like this.
No question. David, at the end of the day, did Dak really give up anything in this contract?
That's a great point, and no, and people don't often like it, but quarterbacks have a way of winning these types of negotiations. Honestly, I figured Dak was going to win because, again, if you're a capable quarterback worthy of being paid at the top of the market, you usually do. But on top of that, he gets his deal. It's technically a 6-year deal that voids down to 4. So I guess the Cowboys do have that comfort to help them spread the cap hit out. But Dak can still be eligible for free agency in 4 years when he's only 31 years old. He's got a no franchise tag clause in this new deal, so this will be the last time he ever has to deal with a tag. And he's got a no trade clause, so he's in charge of any other destinations he might go to. So, any way you slice it, I think it's a really good deal for the Cowboys because they get a great quarterback under contract. But this is a big, big win for Dak Prescott, and I think it kind of shows why it took so long for this deal to get done.
He is David Helman. Follow him on Twitter at HelmanDC, DallasCowboys.com. He joins us on the Shinerbach guest line. Why do you think Jerry and Steven decided to do it now instead of maybe July 10th, David?
A couple reasons. Firstly, because it sounds counterintuitive, but getting this done helps them maneuver their finances for this coming league year. They could have tagged him. They would have had to carry $38 million on the cap. Nobody wants to do that in a year. Well, you don't want to do that anyway, but you definitely don't want to do it in a year where the salary cap's not expected to grow by a whole lot because of COVID. So Dak's cap hit for this year is actually only $22 million, which is, for us, that's a hell of a lot of money. But in terms of NFL quarterbacks, that's nothing, in a league where Deshaun Watson's getting 40 a year and Carson Wentz's cap hit to not be on the Philadelphia Eagles is actually $33 million. So that's a bargain, and it's going to help the Cowboys sign free agents. It's going to help them maneuver around. They don't have to restructure other players' deals if they don't want to. And then there's also the risk of, if you carry this thing on for 3 or 4 more months, maybe it gets a little contentious. Maybe Dak says, all right, you guys clearly don't believe in me, so I'm going to test free agency and not sign. And then you probably lose Dak next year. So for a variety of reasons, I think it was really smart for them to get this out of the way.
Now, all right, Dak Prescott has signed for $164 million, $126 guaranteed. We're visiting with Cowboys Insider David Helman on the Out of Bounds show, DallasCowboys.com. With the number 10 pick in the draft, what direction do you think that the Cowboys go? Offense, defense, trade back? How do you see that right now?
Yeah, that's, again, there's a million reasons why this was smart to get out of the way. And part of it is that you can now focus your draft strategy on what makes this team better, for Dak Prescott. You don't have to worry about drafting a quarterback or, whether or not you're going to have Dak, yada, yada. And for me, I think it sets you up to draft purely. There's no way to know for sure who will be there, who might slip to you, who might offer you some crazy trade package. But that does free you up because, let's say a quarterback falls to the Cowboys now. Well, you could use that as trade bait now instead of maybe needing to draft a quarterback to cover yourself. So if you put a gun to my head this morning, I would say defense, just because I think that's where the value lines up. If I had to bet on it, I think the Cowboys will draft a cornerback with that pick. But, if an offensive tackle falls to you or something like that, you could maybe go that way. But, I think it's a load off their minds that they don't have that weighing on them when they consider these other draft prospects.
Sure. David Helman on the Out of Bounds show. So, David, what do they have to do on the offense? This offensive line has been riddled with injuries, and now this phenomenal group of 5 or 6 years ago is older. It's longer in the tooth. So what is realistic that they can do in this offseason to protect Dak?
Well, call me a total optimist, but I think the nice thing is I really don't think you have to do that much, to be honest with you. Do they need to protect themselves? Yes. Tyron Smith, he's getting close to 30, and he's dealt with a variety of injury issues over the last 5 years. Lyle Collins is coming off an injury that forced him to miss the entire season. The good news is both those guys are under contract. They're both rehabbing their injuries. They're both expected to be back. So You're not necessarily looking for starting offensive tackles right now. You'll get Zach Martin back from injury as well. So the vast majority of those really talented players are coming back. And so I think the priority now is protecting yourself in case of another injury. Does that mean you draft an offensive tackle 10th overall? Does it mean you sign somebody in free agency? It's hard to say. But I would guess, I really think they'll probably draft an offensive tackle with one of their first 3 or 4 picks. Doesn't necessarily have to be a first rounder, but just kind of protect yourself because they've got quality starters. I think the key is just getting a little bit of an insurance policy.
With Mike McCarthy and the way that everything looked up until Dak was injured, and it looked discombobulated. You could argue on offense, but definitely on defense. I know Dak was putting up big numbers, but they were getting down and so on. This guy is a veteran coach. He won a Super Bowl with the Green Bay Packers, but they just didn't look like a well-oiled machine. Why? Is there still confidence that McCarthy's the guy and that this thing will look better next September, David?
Well, from the Cowboys' perspective, yeah, I think there's still a lot of confidence. I think, it's a very good point. They looked bad enough that I wouldn't trust anybody on the outside from having shaken confidence. I think Mike McCarthy really underestimated how difficult it is to install a scheme and put an offense and a defense together during a pandemic. Everybody says, all throughout the offseason, people say the virtual meetings are amazing and we didn't even need to have all these practices, but it sure looked like they needed it when the game started. And so I don't think it's a coincidence that Mike McCarthy went and hired Dan Quinn as his defensive coordinator. They essentially went right back to the scheme that they used to run before McCarthy got here. He tried to install something new with Mike Nolan. To say it was a disaster is putting it mildly. So I think it's kind of amusing that, again, they went right back to a similar scheme that they used under Chris Richard and Rod Marinelli. And I think that makes a ton of sense because that's your best hope for this defense is that that the guys that are here can run that scheme fairly well. And you add some new talent to that. And, that's kind of the beauty of it. If you're a Cowboy fan looking for hope that they can improve their fortunes, you don't need an elite defense to succeed with this offense. At least that's the logic. You now have Dak locked in. You've got the vast majority of your offensive line in place. You've got arguably the best receiver core in the league, and you've got Ezekiel Elliott. So, there's no reason why this offense shouldn't be able to regularly crack 30 points a game. And if it can do that, then obviously your defense only needs to get a couple stops a week for you to win the majority of the games you play. So I think that's the logic, and I think that's why they went back to that scheme.
All right, Dan Quinn's legit. He was at Seattle with Pete Carroll. He did some good things in Atlanta. There were a couple of times they were close. Obviously in the Super Bowl. But, Quinn is they have to be really excited about Dan Quinn as the defensive coordinator for the Dallas Cowboys, David.
I would think so. I mean, if you're looking for an ideal hire to make coming off of a terrible season, I mean, you just mentioned it. Dan Quinn's got all the pedigree you could ask for. He famously didn't, they choked away that Super Bowl to New England, but still managed to build a Super Bowl team in Atlanta, and obviously was the defensive coordinator for those amazing Seattle defenses back at the start of the decade. So, are the Cowboys going to build their own Legion of Boom? That's probably optimistic. But again, this is a team that's built to succeed through its offense, and you now have a very experienced, very player-friendly coach who you would like to think can put all, there is talent on the defensive side of the ball. You have DeMarcus Lawrence, you have Leighton Vander Esch and Jalen Smith, and, you're bringing Trayvon Diggs back to play corner. And like I said, I think it's a good guess that they'll draft another defender in the top 10. So that's some talent to work with. And I think there's reason to believe that Dan Quinn can, again, maybe not dominate, but, at least field a good enough defense to compete.
Oh, Vander Esch can get and stay healthy. Man, he looked good early. We're visiting with David Helman, Cowboys Insider, DallasCowboys.com. He joins us on the Shinerbot guest line. You're listening Out of Bounds on ESPN 105.9 The Zone. David, what are people telling you in the building about how good CeeDee Lamb can be, considering how good he looked prior to Dak going down as a rookie out of Oklahoma?
And it's a good point. I mean, one of the best perks of my job is being inside the building all the time. You just wind up having conversations that, even if you're a really plugged in reporter, you're not just going to run into people in the hallway or while you're waiting in line to get lunch. And you learn a lot of interesting things, but I kind of laugh because I don't think I need anybody to tell me how good CeeDee Lamb is. I mean, the guy was just, I thought, had an absolutely phenomenal rookie season, especially, with all the hype. He falls to 17th overall in the draft. People were saying he was the best available player by a long shot. They give him the famous 88. And he goes out and, he only missed a 1,000-yard season by 40 or 50 yards. And again, like you said, he did the vast majority of that without Dak Prescott. I think there were some consistency issues, struggled at times with drops, but not in a super way that makes you super concerned. And so for him to do what he did without having Dak for most of the season, I thought it was really impressive. And I don't think there's any doubt that he's going to be a really good player for a long time.
Well, even David's dogs are fired up about Dak Prescott's contract.
Well, unfortunately, it's not my dogs; it's the neighborhood dogs. I'm sorry about that.
No, it's all good.
Everybody's antsy this morning.
David Helman, DallasCowboys.com on the Out of Bounds show. Okay, walk me through Jarwin and Schultz at tight end. I like both. I wasn't sure a couple years ago on Jarwin as we were going through the Witten dance, but Jarwin goes down. But then Schultz played well, but they both look like threats, and especially red zone threats. I don't even know where they are contract-wise. Will both of them be on the roster in 2021, David?
They will both be on the roster. The Cowboys actually, they get a lot of grief for not signing guys. I thought they did something really smart. They gave Blake Jarwin a 3-year contract extension, basically sight unseen. He had never been a starting tight end, and they gave him a 3-year, $24 million extension. Unfortunately, he only got to play a half before he tore his ACL last year. But, I'm wrong so often in this industry. I felt vindicated at how well Dalton Schultz played. I think Blake Jarwin is a more explosive athlete. I think he's more of a downfield threat. I think he's more of a red zone mismatch. And so the fact that Dalton Schultz was able to go out and catch 60 balls for 600 yards, I think the sky's the limit for what Blake Jarwin could accomplish in the same role, especially with this receiver core that this team has. I thought it was such a shame that he didn't really get to have a season, but I think he's a guy, there's only so many balls to go around, but I think he's got the talent and the potential to have a 1,000-yard season, especially in such a wide-open offense. So, yeah, Jarwin's under contract for the foreseeable future. I believe Schultz is entering a contract year, so it'll be interesting to see, how they do that timeshare. But, for all the uncertainty at the downturn of Jason Witten's career, it really looks like they're in a good spot there for the first time in a while.
Yeah, I like those two guys, Jarwin and Schultz, tight ends, and really nice red zone or third down targets for the man Dak Prescott. We're visiting with David Helman, Cowboys Insider, DallasCowboys.com on the Shinerbach guest line. Blake?
Yeah, David, as president, CEO of Team 40 Burger for the Cowboys, with Gallup being probably the odd man out, do the Cowboys look at getting a receiver this year later in the draft? Or is there a way that they can keep Michael Gallup, Amari Cooper, and CeeDee Lamb? That just seems implausible.
Yeah, there's a few ways you can go with that. And I kind of laugh. And I totally get it. I understand why people are talking about it. I think it's a conversation worth having, but I feel like football fans often try to solve their problems before they exist. In the sense of they're like, well, what are we going to do with Michael Gallup? He might be the odd man out. We can't afford to keep him. Well, let's just see what happens. There's nothing wrong with having three really great wide receivers. And actually, it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. The Cowboys structured Amari Cooper's contract in a really interesting way. Basically, all of his guarantees are front-loaded in the first 2 years of his extension. So starting next year, if they want to, they can cut him without it being this terrible burden on their cap. So it's conceivable, I'm not saying it's likely, but it's at least conceivable that they could part ways with Amari Cooper and sign Michael Gallup if that's something that they wanted to do. If Gallup goes out and just absolutely dominates, or having Dak under contract could free them up to franchise tag Gallup next year if they wanted to. Or, you just let him walk in free agency and you can get a compensatory draft pick. So there's 4 or 5 ways for that to play out. And honestly, I think all of them probably favor the Cowboys. But yeah, to your point, I don't think it would be a terrible idea to draft a guy just because it's never a bad idea to just keep that talent coming. Would I spend a first-round pick on a receiver? Absolutely not. But the Cowboys are going to pick as many as, we don't have the final number of their picks yet, but it's going to be 10 or more picks. So, yeah, if you want to throw one at a wide receiver, I don't see a problem with that.
Yeah, we'll take Elijah Moore in the second round out of Ole Miss and just pad the whole deal as far as receivers and slot guys. And then throw David Helman joining us, Cowboys Insider, DallasCowboys.com. David, you throw in Wilson, who emerged as a nice target. You're looking at Amari, Gallup, CeeDee, Schultz, Jarwin, Wilson, and then you mentioned the backfield, and I think the backup may be better than Zeke and Tony Pollard. But Wilson's a guy who emerged as a legitimate weapon, didn't he?
Absolutely, had a great year. Kind of like a lot of guys, kind of fell off after Dak got hurt, but that's a guy. For a down the depth chart guy, definitely not a name brand player, but a guy with a really great relationship with Dak Prescott. It's one of Dak's favorite targets over the last couple of years since he got drafted, and that'll be interesting too. He's a restricted free agent, which basically means it'll be really easy for the Cowboys to keep him if they want to. I definitely anticipate them doing that. So yeah, you're talking about, obviously you got the 3 big receivers, but then you got a very solid 4th guy in Cedric Wilson. We already talked about the tight ends, and you mentioned the backfield. So yeah, people stress about the defense, and I'm kind of like, the offense is where this team is built. If they're going to succeed, it's going to be because of their offense, and that's really fun. It'll also be, really interesting for Dak Prescott because it'll be hard to make excuses for him if they can't routinely score a lot of points. I know that.
No question. Well, we'll leave it there. David Helman on the Out of Bounds Show, DallasCowboys.com, Cowboys Insider. Follow him on Twitter at HelmanDC. David, I know it's a busy day for you. Thank you so much for your time. Appreciate it, buddy.
Hey, this is the good kind of busy. I appreciate it, y'all.
Take care. David Helman, DallasCowboys.com, Cowboys Insider. Follow David on Twitter for all things Dak and the Cowboys at HelmanDC. The show is brought to you by Blue Cross Blue Shield of Mississippi. It's good to be blue, the official healthcare provider of the Out of Bounds Show, Blue Cross Blue Shield of Mississippi. Blake, the question now going forward for the next couple hours is, can you function after that interview?
Yeah, I'm ready to go. I'm fired up. I love what David said. First off, it's all about offense because that's what the league is and that's what this team's built on.
And then it's situational on defense.
I'd rather be this than the Bears. Give me the Cowboys situation than the Bears. Taking it college, give me Ole Miss's situation more often than not. Give me the offense that can score 40 and the defense that I pray can find one stop.
Right.
Because that's more manageable and fixable to me and more positive.
Than Pete Carroll's way?
Yeah. Which could be even
Kirby Smart.
Could be even worse if
Will Muschamp?
Russell Wilson walks away.
Well, we're going to stop him 9 times on Saturday. So that's how we're going to do it.
The difference is at least Kirby and Pete actually get stops. Muschamp just wasn't doing either.
Jeremy Pruitt. He believed in defense. We're going to win all these games 14-10.
Yeah.
And unless you're facing a Joe Moorhead offense, then that's not going to work. Live in the Bank Plus studio, Out of Bounds, 105.9 The Zone. That was 20 minutes on Dak Prescott and the Cowboys. How about that depth, offensive skill position-wise? Amari Cooper, Michael Gallup, CeeDee Lamb, Cedric Wilson. At tight end, you have Jarwin and Schultz, and in the backfield, you have Zeke Elliott and Tony Pollard, and I think Pollard's better than Zeke. And then, of course, you got number 4 who wears the star, and that is Dak Prescott's going to be the quarterback for the biggest brand in American sports, and that is the Dallas Cowboys for 4 more years. And at 31, he gets to either renegotiate or leave, and it's a no-trade clause and no franchise tag provision, Blake. Russell Wilson among Seahawks not mentioned in letter to season ticket holders. My gosh, Pete Carroll's really going to do this. Paul Allen, the billionaire owner of the Seattle Seahawks, passes away.
Yeah, he's rolling in his grave right now.
And Pete Carroll, it's a power move. And now he runs the Seahawks now, A to Z, and he's going to run this thing into the Chicago Bears. That's what the Seattle Seahawks are thinking that they're going to do. We're going to be great on defense and inept and just awful on offense. Russell Wilson is either the best quarterback on the planet or 1A, right? With Mahomes and Rodgers.
I'd put him right there.
You just shake them all up depending on what's going on. Unbelievable. As far as talent, throws maybe the best deep ball in the NFL. Ask DK Metcalf or Tyler Lockett. And it looks like, I don't know, but it looks like Pete Carroll could screw this up.
Ask DK or Tyler Lockett if they want to play without Russell next year in Seattle.
Absolute power absolutely corrupts, and that's what I think you're looking at with the Seattle Seahawks. All right, the Out of Bounds Show is brought to you by XL Water and Coffee, #1 residential bottled water service in the Jackson metro area. XL. How about water to your door for your family? That sounds awesome. Go to wateratmydoor.com. Wateratmydoor.com. Wateratmydoor.com and get 50% off your initial order with discount code BOUNDS. That's wateratmydoor.com and get 50% off your initial order with discount code BOUNDS. XL Water and Coffee is the #1 residential bottled water service in the Jackson metro area. Wateratmydoor.com and get 50% off your initial order with discount code BOUNDS. Detillier at 8:30.